right, people. Look what we got here today. I got my boy John. How y'all doing? I hope you're having a great Tuesday. I know I'm having a good Tuesday. I'm going to check out there in the chat and say hey to everybody. We got Seashell SoCal. That's Pat. Hey, how you doing out there, Pat? Good to see you. Asian. Oh, the Time Outlaw. This guy does some great illustrations, some great animations. Plays the bass guitar, too. What's up, bro? Good to see you out there. Of course, we got D. John Tidor, but he's right here with me right here, everybody. So that's pretty fantastic. Then we got Spiritual God Warrior 07 to you. Big salute. How you doing? How you doing? James, shouting out there. What up, bruv? What up, bruv? All right. We got Mr. Jeeky out there. Let's fucking go. Good to see you. Good to see you. How's everybody doing? Fantastic. Okay. Now, we had a really fun conversation, and we got a lot of really good feedback about it last week when we were talking about this concept of corruption versus creativity. And the conversation really expanded. It really, got going, and that was pretty exciting. And so we're back here again for number 2 because we had a lot more to say about it, and I just didn't want to try to squeeze it into, we were going on 2 hours there, and I didn't want to squeeze it into 4 hours or something like that, and wear me out, wear poor John out over here. He's over there in, down in the Panhandle. Oh no, he's down in southern Miami or wherever, and he's having a great old time. And he got stuff to do at night. So John, welcome. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good, Ray. It's good to be back. Is my audio coming through?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty good. I think the chat, if John cuts out or he starts speaking Spanish or something, you let us know, okay? You know what I mean?
Sounds good. Yeah, no, everything's been going great. Just getting shit done. Getting ready to start streaming myself again soon, which kind of excited for. And yeah, man.
Well, that's fantastic. So you're going to start up your podcast, right? And what podcast is that? Give me a shout out. Give me a plug.
That is the Third Rail. You can find me. I am Third Rail Politics on both Rumble and YouTube. I do political news coverage, sometimes commentary if something interesting, like if I see a good debate, I'll do commentary on that. Or if I see like some news stuff, it's a mix of stuff. Sometimes it's just me talking to a camera about what's been going on. Other times I have guests where we, just discuss stuff that's going on. Sometimes it's a little more combative, sometimes it's not, but it's a good time. And yeah, and then I'm also going to be eventually, I haven't started that at all yet, but eventually I'm going to be streaming my DJ practice sets, so that'll be fun too.
Oh, very cool, very cool. I like how you're going to the Dan Bongino route. You're going to go ahead and become the governor or the director of the FBI eventually. Is that what's going on here?
No, I don't want that job. Have you seen the look on that man's face? He looks like he has seen some shit.
Now, didn't he change? Well, didn't he change, bro? He went from like everybody loved him as a podcaster, then all of a sudden he's gonna be the truth teller, right? He's gonna get all into the getting that position, and then he changed overnight.
It kind of goes with the theme of what we're talking about with the creativity versus the corruption, right?
Yeah.
He was like the truth teller. He was the guy who gave it to you straight. And I liked him, Like I wasn't the biggest Dan Bongino fan, but I enjoyed him. And I felt like he was a genuine guy. And then he gets in and all of a sudden he's got this terrified look on his face and he can't tell us anything about anything anymore.
Bro, that's true. He used to be so charismatic and a very likable guy. Maybe if I didn't agree with him or thought he was full of bullshit, I always had that feeling that, yeah, if I saw him like at a softball game or out at the bar or something, we could have a beer and we have a couple of laughs or whatever. And he seemed like a very, gregarious, nice guy. But then he got that position and like, it's like, I don't know what happened. What do you think happened to him? His disposition, his charisma, it's all out the window. He completely changed.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know. I think, he got into that position of power, and the big thing, we know what the big issue that the FBI, him and Kash Patel have been dealing with, which is the Epstein stuff. I don't know if they threatened him. I don't know if he saw some shit that humans are not meant to see. It's probably a combination of both. And now he's just like a ghost of himself.
I know, it's almost like, I don't want to say it, but it's almost like they emotionally R-worded him. It's almost like he got onto the team, he signed on, he swore his oath, and they said, okay, well, now you have to protect the secret. you have to protect the Epstein secret or something. That's kind of what it feels like.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, obviously they're hiding it. Like they go from 1 minute, the files are on my desk on Fox News, right, Bondi, and then all of a sudden it's like, what files? There's no files. This is all a lie. So yeah, they're protecting it.
And that kind of brings us back to what we're talking about, which is corruption versus creation. Can you be corrupt and still be a creative person? Or if you're creative and can you be corrupt? I personally don't think that if you're going to be a creative person, you have to, wash yourself of corruption. You can't have it in you. And I think it's a pretty good example of my point with Dan Bongino. He was a very creative person when it came to talk radio or podcasting or what have you, and he was great at it. Fantastic communicator, very good people person. And then all of a sudden, it's like he agreed to a pact, like a secret pact, and then it destroyed his ability to be that charismatic person, to be that, good in front of people on the podium, good with the conversation. What say you?
Well, yeah, and he also had a very commanding, authoritative presence.
He did.
And now that's like gone. It's all gone. It's just like I said, he's like a scared cat.
Yeah, he used to have that air of authority. Like he was kind of the guy that was like the anchor of your team, right? Like whether you played football, baseball, or whatever, you knew that when it came down to it, and you had to give the ball, basketball to the last guy, or you're going to put the football in the hands of the, of your running back to get a first down. It was going to be Dan Bongino, and he kind of felt like that guy for a lot of conservative people, and like he's the best of us kind of thing, and then he got completely taken out, completely wiped out by whatever he saw or learned or agreed to, and it really transformed him as a person. And I think that's how it happens.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, I don't think anyone in positions of power like that are truly free to really start uncovering things, because the term the deep state, right? It's been used and overused now, but really the deep state is the entrenched people who don't change between administrations. Those people aren't going to let you mess up their deal. So yeah, he got in there. The people who are always there, who can't be removed, probably threatened or hid stuff from them, or who knows what. But yeah, he's not free to be himself. I don't think any of those people are.
Yeah, and then I think when you come to learn that and realize that, it makes it very hard to go back to being, the old you when you used to talk about change, because you realize it's not really that possible.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the weird thing is, for Bongino in specific, is he was a Secret Service agent under Obama, and I think under Bush as well.
Yeah, he
I'm
was
not sure about that. That could be wrong.
Obama's personal guy or something like that.
Yeah. So he's been there. It's not like he, but I mean, maybe being the deputy director of the FBI, like you're let into more things. You're shown more things. More things than just being a Secret Service guy. Even though, I mean, if you're a Secret Service guy, you're like near the president, kind of regular, I would imagine. I don't know. It's kind of an odd predicament to be that guy. And he said, I don't want to do it, but if Trump personally asks me, I'll do it. And he got his wish.
Well, you got to ask. Yeah, you got to ask the question. Why do you think? What was it about Bongino that made him valuable? What was it about Bongino that would make Trump ask him? What do you think?
His credibility with people.
That's right.
Because he's so popular with the right wing.
That's right. I agree. They wanted him to sacrifice his public persona for their sake of trust to conceal the lie. And he did that. And in my opinion, his social persona is ruined.
Oh, yeah. No, you can see it. He basically sacrificed his authenticity for this. And I don't think he went in there knowing that was what was going to happen, because I don't think he would have done it.
I guarantee. I don't think he knew either. But I think that's how corruption works, isn't it? I think corruption presents itself as this little tiny contract, this little tiny deal. and it seems very innocuous at first, but really, the deal will completely change who you are.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, even if he were to go back to being who he was, no one's gonna take him serious anymore. I wouldn't
Well,
personally.
also, and also he knows. He knows different, right? Um,
Yeah,
I tell a story all the time that, like, say for example, you go through a lot of trauma. It's very hard to go back in your childhood. If you go through a lot of trauma in your childhood, it's very hard to go back to playing with dolls and blocks, because you've experienced so much more of a greater emotion and reality of how the world is. Even though it's a dark reality, that little innocence is lost. You can't reattain that.
yeah, definite. I mean, I've never done therapy personally, but I know people who have, and they always talk about like figuring out where the trauma started. It's always something in childhood, and if you've been damaged in childhood like that, then typically you're gonna have issues your whole life.
No, for
Um,
sure. I did go through therapy a little bit, and I know that I've come to learn, and because of the therapy, it really made like human psychology a passion of mine, and not really psychology, but why people do things, and and people up in their mind think that they do things for one reason, and then how they actually behave is for a completely different reason, and they maintain that cognitive dissonance where they believe one way but they behave another way all the time, and we see it all the time, and it's quite shocking. Is that something you've encountered?
yeah, I think definitely. Yeah, I sorry about that. Yeah, I think definitely people when they go through something traumatizing, even if it's not necessarily in their childhood, it could really change the person. And like with Bongino, like he didn't or couldn't stay authentic to himself. I think that really gets to the heart of what we discussed last time about the corruption. The corruption kind of got to him, and the one of the main talking points we were talking about last time was that you have to part of being an artist and just a person in general is just being authentic, and being authentic is the currency going forward, just because of all the AI stuff that's going to be happening. If you're a creator, remaining authentic and true to yourself and a real person who people can identify with. But if you lose that authenticity, you're done.
Yeah,
Completely done.
I completely agree. Shout out to Grass out there in the chat. But I completely agree with what you're saying. The authenticity is so important and so key. And really, it's about a choice of what you submit to. Are you going to submit to creation, like absolute morality? Or are you going to submit to this corruption, which is basically relative morality, where you agree that normally it's not okay, but in this situation it will be okay because I'm going to do this, and I'll make up for it later. And the greater question is that an alchemical process that changes you in the long run? That makes it difficult, if not impossible, to return to your point of authenticity.
Yeah, I with this whole situation that they're dealing with, there's two schools of thought. Either Trump was blackmailed or controlled in some way or threatened, right? And so that's why he's not releasing the stuff. And then it's weird because they're both kind of conspiracy brained, right? Although they're both, one of them has to be right. The other school of thought is that he's using the blackmail now to blackmail the people that he needs to kind of keep in check, right? Which in my mind makes him just as bad as the original blackmailer. But it's another school of thought is that he sees what is at stake. There's a lot of like heads of industry, uh, you know, heads of media, heads of state on that list, and if he releases it, then a lot of global economic collapse could happen. I don't think that's a good enough reason to not just say fuck it and unleash the unleash hellfire. But
Now,
it's a matter of
have you seen that movie Snowpiercer by any chance?
no, I haven't seen that one.
So out in the chat, have you guys seen the movie Snowpiercer? And I'll give you a little brief thumbnail what it's about. Snowpiercer is about this train, okay, and it's in the future, and there was a global catastrophe, and this train was designed to be a self-contained unit in case of emergency like this, like Armageddon kind of thing, right? And so something happened that they wiped out, life or whatever, and then it went to sub-zero temperatures. And so this train runs on a rail around the Earth in 1 year or something like that. And on the train is separated into different compartments, and the slaves are in the back, and then as you go forward, it gets to the more and more elite. And the whole thing about Snowpiercer is it turns out that the entire train is run because what they do is they not only say anoint, but elect children, a couple of children from the slave class to go and have a better life. But that's a lie. The children from the slave class really go up to the engine compartment and work in tight places in the engine, which ends up, it kills them in the long run. They get radiation or whatever it is. It's a nuclear train. And they die. And so, they need a new one every year, a new 2 or 3 or whatever like that. And so the story is about these people revolting from the back and getting to the front and then realizing that the entire train is ran upon the blood of children, much like how the society is. And then they have to make a decision. Do they continue on with that, or do they stop the train and then, basically risk dying or whatever? And that's kind of describes the situation you just described. I think that if we were to look at Trump, I don't think Trump is he's a newcomer to the table. If you ask me, I think you have to, not you as in John, but when I say you, it's the general you,
Yeah.
have to look at the component of the black economy or the dark money that is, it dominates the space of all the economies of the world. The dark economy is much, much larger than the regular economy. And all of these people are in concert, or they are a conspiracy in order to keep this train running on this, whether it's drugs, human trafficking, or whatever it is, to keep these people running. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be clear. I don't think Trump did anything with kids.
Sure.
There's a lot of victims that have come forward and said a lot of things and people. So I don't think he did anything personally in that sense. But yeah, I mean, the whole world is run on dark money, and if you want power, you have to find the people who are in power and control them from the shadows somehow, right?
Right.
I mean, I was gonna say Prince Andrew, was it? Is he the one that was?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to say too much, just to not have any issues with your channel, but Prince Andrew, he was definitely someone who had to pay out a pretty big lawsuit and was removed from the royal family, like all his titles stripped and stuff over it. So.
Yeah. Again, I'm not, of course, saying I don't have no idea who did what or whatever. I'm just saying that, it's quite possible that these men who used to not know this stuff all of a sudden join this, government, and they're privy now to the overwhelming nature of that dark economy, and they don't know what to do about it, because they know if they speak up, like you said, they're going to bring down, these different parts of society, and it's going to crash. And I know how important everybody, all these women who want their Starbucks coffees every morning is, right? They all want their coffees. Or how about all them people who got their EBT frozen during the government shutdown? They're ready to riot. They're ready to take. They say it's ours. You owe it to us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they won't get a job, right? But we owe them.
Yeah, that's right. We're seeing tons of I just watched Revenge of the Sis, and they were showing them tons of TikTok videos about how, we're gonna organize, we're gonna go rob, we're gonna make you give us the money, and the level of entitlement's insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was funny though. I was watching them yesterday. I think they were playing more of those videos. I didn't watch them today yet. I watched them later on, but uh, there was a couple of women who were like, "What's the difference? You were stealing before anyway." That shit
Yeah,
cracked me up.
well, that's the truth. And so then I come back to our original question. With that level of corruption, it's no wonder there are very very few creative people in society.
Yeah, well, it's a business and it's a means of influencing people. Who doesn't want to be the coolest rock star that they looked up to as a kid, right?
Yeah,
So it's a means to influence people for sure. So why would they not want to control those people?
100%.
That
And the fact that so many people are growing up corrupt now, are growing up influenced by these other things. They are losing their touch with creativity. They're no longer creative. They're video game players. They're consuming media that's being more and more digitized, more and more monetized. And you and I were chatting a little bit before, and we were talking about how, it used to be like you'd have to question. You're reading the books, you're getting your textbooks from high school or college or whatever, and you're reading these books and you're basing your whole, philosophy of life upon them, in a matter of speaking. And, you and I were talking about how rare it is to question that philosophy that you're being spoon fed. Even much more so when we make all of that material digitized and they can change at any moment with a control find, control replace, whatever says whatever.
Oh yeah, no, definitely the whole digital era is a lot scary in that sense. I mean, I always find it funny. It was one of your comments that brought this topic up. People say, "Oh, have you read a book about it?" As if people don't lie in books. Like every single book you read is going to be like factual just because it's on paper. But the fact that now they can go back when as we have fewer and fewer physical hard copies of books and movies and everything else, they can just go back and change stuff and say, "Oh, it's a new edition," and not tell you what's changed. And if it's digital, like for instance with like Amazon Kindle or something, right? What's to say they can't just change your book in your app without ever telling you, and then you don't know why you're none the wiser. You'll
Right.
never know.
And I think they're actively doing that actually. I remember the first time this concept ever really impacted me, and I used to, I read a lot of Holocaust books, and I remember I read Night by Elie Wiesel, and I remember hearing like 5 or 6 or 10 years later that it wasn't true, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, there was even the comic book Maus, Maus, if you ever remember that, where the Germans were cats and the Jews were mice, and I love that thing. I read that both of those comic books, and it came out that wasn't based. It was all fictional, and I couldn't believe that. I was like, but I'm learning that later. After I've already
Yeah.
been influenced and thought it was a true story, or I remember there was different people that they came out and they said, well, it was real in my imagination, so it's real enough. And I was like, wow, that's the standard. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and you know, unless something is on video, how do you know it's true? And even if it's on video, how do you know it's not altered? And now with AI, how do you know it's not AI? It's
Oh man, that's so true. Another good example is that the moon landing. I'm not picking a side either way, but uh, you know, I look at the technology that they made for the moon landing, and I look at how they say that they got the different aspects of it up to the moon, and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, the moon rover, the blah 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 blah, and of course, there's been a ton of other evidence to come out about a lot of things, and I'm not making a commentary based on if it's true or not, but I am making a commentary about how information is manipulated.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll be 100% honest. I don't believe the moon landing was real. There's a lot of, let's just say, inconsistencies at best. Um, Especially if anyone out there is interested, just look at the moon rocks that they gave around to the other countries when they got back. Most of them were just petrified wood,
That's right,
apparently.
petrified wood. They all turn out to be petrified wood.
Yeah, and then I mean the astronauts themselves. John Glenn, he behaved really oddly anytime he was interviewed afterwards. Uh, that's just surface level stuff. There's, I mean, all the inconsistencies with the video and whatnot. All that aside, yeah, they expect you to believe that they just tossed out all the evidence, right? Like the telemetry data, all gone. They recorded over it with something else allegedly, and we can't go back. We somehow got past the Van Allen radiation belt, but we've never gone back. But now China was supposed to go back, I think, in like '05, and then they're delayed till like 2030. I just recently read. So I'm not saying it can never be done. I'm just saying I don't think we did,
Well,
but there's video.
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and like I said, I don't want to get derailed in the topic of did it happen or didn't happen. We could go back and forth, and I mean, I pretty much see it how you see it. But what I will say is, what could be the purpose from a government point of view to make the society believe this, so that they go for this goal and create this sense of extreme tribalism, and then also use the funding or allocate the funding in order to make this happen. And how much was that funding? And how much funding do we still give to this day? And people say, oh, well, NASA was broken up a while ago and then reformed. But, a lot of people don't realize that even SpaceX is subsidized.
Oh yeah, no space. This is why I always hated Elon Musk before it was cool, because everything he does is subsidized. Uh, he's taxpayer funded, 100. I mean, not 100%, but a good chunk. And what do we, the people, get out of that? A
Nothing.
guy who's now worth like $400 billion or 500, whatever he's worth now, who's going to be worth $1 trillion at some point.
Right,
The
right.
first billionaire.
Right. Why do guaranteed government contracts? Why are they used to enrich someone in that company instead of creating, a throughput or a product through that company as a means to repay the taxpayer? But instead, the taxpayers give him money to go in his pocket. It's the same thing with Amazon. A lot of people don't even know, or maybe they do, that Amazon has tons of contracts for cloud computing from the government.
Well, Amazon Web Service runs pretty much. I mean, I think it's like 70-80% of the internet is on Amazon Cloud. So yeah, I mean, and Amazon is a CIA InQtel funded corporation. That's how they got their startup. Same with Google and Facebook. So
Right, which was LifeLog previous to that, and it doesn't take a lot of digging. But again, I asked the question, like we come back to this question: what does that mean for us individually? What does that mean for John as you sit where you sit, and Ray as I sit where I sit? And when I ask that question, I the answer that comes back to me is that we have to be the adventurer in our own lives, and we can only do that through authenticity and some level of creation. Would you agree
yeah,
with that?
definitely. I mean, I think even if you're not a classically creative type, like with art or music or something, you gotta at least like get your hands dirty in some mechanics, or do something where you're connected to reality
Yeah.
instead of just what most people spend their lives looking at a screen, and I've been guilty of that too, just doom scrolling for god knows how long. But yeah, people gotta do something that gets that creative energy flowing, even if it's not something like like I said, music or art or whatever.
Well, I agree with you, and I think it's been a big disservice to all of people to kind of label creativity as in this. Oh, you can only be creative if you're with music or with paints or with art or whatever. I think we are all creative in a lot of areas, and so it makes me kind of try to consider and try to think about what is it about creativity that every person should participate in. And one of the answers that comes back to me is that creativity is a teacher, because creativity is the interaction with the consequences of the natural world that we live, kind of like what you were just talking about.
Oh yeah, definitely. Anytime you do any kind of building something, or even just like your Sunday shows, and me posting all these pictures on X of my shopping and like cooking and lighting a grill and cooking something badass on it is another form of creativity. I posted my grandmother's cheesecake recipe in the Discord. When you guys try that, you're gonna see that that is peak creativity.
That's right. That's right. Because it creates a product, right? From that interaction and creativity, the result is a product that it either is good or it's not. There's not this interpretation, right? It's either 5 pounds or it's not 5 pounds. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's when you're trying to evaluate it, there is this no interpretive. Well, that's good for you, but I like it this way. Blah 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 blah. It's either you put the engine together correctly and you can drive, or it's not correct and it sits in your garage.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, some stuff is subjective. Like art. People might not like your comic strip style. They might prefer like something more realistic, like what's it called? Who was that Marvel guy that was super popular? Not Stan Lee, but the other
Alex
one,
Ross. Alex Ross.
Alex Ross. Okay, yeah. I mean, people have different preferences for what they like. In some ways, art can be subjective, right? I mean, but
Oh, now this is a great conversation because we're gonna. I could tell you, I'm fixing to talk about this for a minute, but go on, finish your statement.
well, I was gonna say, but like I was talking to you about Art Basel, right? And it's a lot of like high society type people. Like one year, the biggest, it was like, I think it was the year right before COVID, the biggest um, display. What is it called? Where they display like it's like a big display where they have a room and people go into the room and look at that one
Oh yeah,
thing.
it's
I
I,
can't think
I,
of the word right now, but the biggest one.
performative art or live action. Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't a performative art. It was
Oh,
panoramic,
installation.
I guess. Yeah,
Installation.
installation. That's
Yeah,
the
there
word
it
I was
is.
looking for.
Yeah.
The biggest installation was a white wall with a banana taped to it, and someone bought that thing for like, I think it was like $5 million. I'm not even kidding. And they got a certificate that said this is the official piece, and you just put a new banana in it when it rots out or whatever.
Well, sure, but the elites have been using art as a NFT kind of token for a long time to move money around,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it
definitely.
it doesn't reflect real art. And so that's what I was going to kind of get into you about it, and like for example, the whole modern art movement was made by the CIA back in the 30s, in order to try to influence the Soviet Union at that time, and still today, the Soviet Union or Russia, especially in St. Petersburg, has the highest level schools for art, for Impressionism, for Russian Impressionism, for real drawing, for real artists. All the fantastic ones come out of there, and this whole concept of like avant-garde art. When I talk to people about artwork, it's kind of like I talk to people about art like it's oil, like it's a petroleum product. And in a petroleum product, you get it distilled out into a whole continuum of different products. And down at the bottom, you got the crude based, garbage oil, and then you got the better machine oil. And as you keep distilling it, then you get the gasoline.
Gasoline and
You, and you,
propane and
right, and you keep going. Well, when you distill like a whole gallon or whatever of oil, you only get like one drop of jet fuel quality. You know, that is art. Okay, all this other stuff is like, it could be decorative, installation. It could be a therapy. It could be cathartic. There's a whole range of other things that it can be that people do to create visual art. But that word art encompasses it all, unfortunately, and doesn't give it a distinction to the very top point of the art, where somebody actually creates something based upon skill, talent, and based upon
yeah,
something moving that they're trying to communicate about the human condition. And when I look
yeah,
at like Art Basel, or I look at these other things, I say, okay, that's not up here. That's not art. That's somewhere. That's like you know
Well, I don't
I
even think like that
go on.
banana piece. I might not have made myself clear. I don't think that's art. Like that high society artsy fartsy fake crap. A banana taped to a wall. That's not art. That's a banana taped to a wall. Like
Yeah,
that's money laundering.
yeah,
Jiki was saying that that's money laundering, and I totally agree. It's a way to launder money. It's like you said,
yeah.
an NFT basically. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. There's good art, and then there's layers of other stuff, and then there's that banana on the wall, which is like, come on, really?
Yeah, and the same happens in fashion. The same happens in all these other areas. And in fact, if you look at you know, like the visual arts or even graphical trends, whether they be in fashion or in home design or whatever, it acts like a tag. Okay, hear me out. A social tag that whoever's trying to manipulate society can put that social tag as a trend and then watch to see how it proliferates across the society, to see how strong that their influence is. Like, say, for example, I say, okay, everybody, we're all going to wear, you know, red shoes or something, right? And I'm sure you know all about the whole red shoes thing, but
Oh yeah.
we're all going to wear red shoes, okay? And then I wait and I see how long it takes for this red shoe trend. I manipulate or pay some rappers to do it. You know, everybody starts to do it. Then before you know it, within the next 2 months, everybody's wearing red shoes, right? And they say, oh, it's a fashion trend. It's a fashion trend. Well, you know, really, it's not a fashion trend. Really, it was a manipulation because there's no authentic or elemental value in that fashion trend. It's a social manipulation.
Well, I'm sure you've seen like these fancy like fashion shows where like they just have like the most ridiculous outfits with like it looks like they're wearing cones in their legs and God knows what else, like all this crazy stuff. And okay, that's like that level of no one is gonna ever wear this stuff, right? Like they don't expect anyone to wear it, but they might take some things out of that, and then that's what they'll pass on to the rappers. Like now, I don't know how long it's been, but for a while now, you've seen like rappers wearing man purses,
Yeah.
and like even I think I even saw what was it Will Smith's kid wore like a dress like
Oh yeah.
as like a regular thing. So they take thing elements from that fashion show, and then they pay influencers to then kind of take elements from it, and then those influencers manipulate society. But it's all a money game because those influencers are getting paid to do that for sure. At least
Yeah.
I think so.
No, you're 100% right. And it's even gone much, much further than that. We got LeBron James out here carrying a Birkin bag. I don't know if you saw those pictures. We got
Oh yeah.
LeBron James wearing a pearl necklace. We got all kind. We got different NBA players wearing like sports bras. You know, we got this
What?
this feminization
The
of
sports bras I hadn't seen.
yeah, we have this feminization of the male archetype within society being manipulated on purpose. And I don't even think it's necessarily a money game because they have, you know, all the money they want. It's about focus, it's about control, and it's about changing the youth that are coming up and basically robbing men of the ability to be fathers.
Well, yeah, and it's funny you mentioned LeBron James with the bag and the pearl necklace. That guy also has a Diddy tattoo. I'm not gonna say that I know for sure that that's all connected, but you know, pearl necklace.
Yeah, right. We all know what a pearl necklace is, and it's not just a ZZ Top song, right? But I know
Yep.
that LeBron James, yeah, he's on camera saying there's no party like a Diddy party, and
Oh yeah.
you know, and so when I talk about, we're talking about creativity versus corruption. That's exactly what we're talking about here. You know, we see these men who are extremely creative, you know, in the basketball world or whatever, and then they're being corrupted, and they're using their influence to further corrupt all these other kids who look up to them in an effort to rob their ability to become fathers. And dude, that's tremendous, bro. I'd hate to be in that position.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And you know, I wonder sometimes, right? Like how many of these basketball players, rappers realize that that's what they're doing or being tasked to do? And how many of it is just a payday for them? where they think, oh, I'll just wear this purse and get money. I don't know what the answer is. There has to obviously be some percentage that, even if they're not told directly, they kind of get the idea of what it is, and another percentage which have no clue and they're just like, this is a payday.
Yeah,
I wonder.
I think there's a lot of them that don't get it, that don't know. I don't know if you heard about that whole recent thing with the NBA and how they got caught gambling, and there was this one guy who got caught, taking a dive in a game or something, and he makes like $24 million a year on the Hornets, and he just like went to jail, and he did that for his childhood friend who made like $20,000. His childhood friend came to him and said, "Hey, can you hook me up with some information or do this thing for me?" And he said, "Sure, no problem." And so that guy got like $20,000 or whatever, and then cost this NBA player his whole entire career. How about that? What the hell is that all about?
Well, the whole gambling, I mean, for that, why not just give your buddy 20 grand, right?
That's what I was saying.
But they're supposedly, I didn't read too much of it. I heard about it, but I haven't really cared about sports in probably like 20 years, to be honest, since Kobe retired, basically, and since before Kobe retired, actually. But I haven't really cared since then. But supposedly it was like a mob thing, like there was mob, And I saw
Well,
an interview recently. Grant Cardone, I'm sure you know who he is, right?
oh yeah, I know who that guy is.
Former mob. No, wait, is it Grant Cardone? I think it was. I can't remember. I get these mob types a little confused. But one of them, he was doing an interview recently I saw where he said, like these guys, they like to gamble. So they gamble and they owe the mob money. And how do they pay him back? Well, you got to do a favor. And then
Yeah.
the mob bets it all. And the guy does the fuck up. They lose the game, but the mob gets their money back out of them. So, yeah, I mean, I
And
think
then
that's probably pretty
and then what
accurate.
happens to that basketball player, right? Now he's got to do it again.
Oh, yeah.
So once it's happened, that once he's allowed that corruption to happen, he's captured to it, you know.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Well, they from what the guy was saying in the interview, it's like, you owe us 200 grand, or a couple million. Who, I guess depending on the player. Well, that's going to be X amount of games you got to throw, and
Yeah,
yeah,
wow. Yeah. And it's always also being reported that that's why Michael Jordan took those 3 years off, was because he got caught gambling, and they kept it hush hush, and his discipline for that was to take 3 years off, hush hush,
yeah. Well, it's 2 years, but yeah, well, a year,
or
almost
two
almost
years,
a year.
2 years
Yeah, in his prime.
in his
In his
prime.
prime. But
That's right.
supposedly, I don't know if this has ever been confirmed, but supposedly his dad's murder was because of his gambling addiction.
Was
I don't
tied
know
to
if
that.
that's true or not, but I've heard that floating around a lot on the
Yeah,
internet.
I've heard that too, and it's crazy because you're sitting there, you're playing basketball, you're say for example you're Michael Jordan, you win your first three championships, you're going to the stadium, you got 100,000 people in the stadium cheering for your every shot and all this kind of stuff, bro. When is enough enough? Can can it be enough? When is there ever enough? Right?
I think it just depends on the person. A person like Michael Jordan who has that drive to always be the best of everything. Like everything he does, he wants to be the top of it. A, a person like that, a person like Donald Trump, you can never have enough because, you can always you're always in a competition with everyone else around you. If you're a billionaire and there's multi-billionaires around you, you don't want to be the poor guy, right?
Sure. Yeah. Now,
So,
do you?
but people
Go
like
on.
that, I think, yeah, there's no enough. Someone like you or me who like come from nothing and or very little and make a couple million, it's like, holy shit, I'm fine now. I don't have worries anymore.
Do you think that is a like a threshold level, or do you think that's just because you and I are different type of people?
I think it's a personality trait, a personality type thing, I think someone who is more um not even humble, because there's people who come from nothing who then go on to be multi-billionaires and become those types of people that always want more. So I'm not saying that it's just because of where we come from, but it's also like part our personality type. Like if I made millions of dollars to where I didn't have to worry about working, what would I do? I'd probably just keep creating and not worry about working, right? I'm sure you would probably be the same. Yeah, maybe you make some money off your creations, but you're not under this constant pressure of having to go out and like work just to make rent and food and all that stuff. I think it just depends on the person, really.
Well,
Different people are different.
that's a good take. I think that along the same lines as you, but with a caveat that I think it has to do with our connection to corruption and creation. I think you're very connected to being a creative person, so you're able to get fulfillment. I'm very connected to being creative and being authentic, so I get a lot of fulfillment out of just creating something in front of me. I don't need a lot of external validation. Perhaps that when these people go through this concept of corruption, they're never fulfilled, and so within them it becomes a black hole that they try to take anything they can to make themselves feel alive.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I always said like if I had money to have a piece of land where I could have some farm animals and stuff, you know, and a car, nothing crazy, right? And be able to travel once a year, I'd be content. I don't need more money than that. It would be nice to have, but I don't need it. And I could be content with that. I think a lot of people just don't have a level. Not it's hard because like there's a lot of people who don't have the means to get there, but if they did, they would be that way, right? So like
Yeah.
I don't know what the percentages would work out to of like what percentage could be content with like a modest life that's comfortable versus
Well,
like needing to be a billionaire.
yeah, no, I think it's about fulfillment. I think you, me, people are always going to try to, no matter what their situation is, to get into a better situation. That's part of being fulfilled. I wouldn't expect to, if I gave you, a couple of acres, somewhere, and I say, okay, you're going to spend your next 40 years here. Have fun, buddy. That's it. That's all you're going to get. You got a couple of chickens. You're going to probably go crazy, right? Because you need some sort of passion, some sort of drive, some sort of purpose. You want to attain that fulfillment through not only creation, but using that creation to make your life better in some capacity. But you don't want to lose that connection to being fulfilled. And my argument would be that these people who, can never get enough and go over the edge, they lose their ability to be fulfilled. That connection to source or that connection that we use to be creative, they lose it because they've in some ways become an addict.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And in a lot of ways, it's not just they become an addict, but kind of like we were talking about last time, you allow yourself to become corrupt, and you kind of get closed off from it, right?
That's right. You get more callous. You lose your sensitivity, and you become more and more callous. And so, when that happens, it takes more and more pointed things to stimulate you. You have to. It's like, no, I can't just have a London broil. I gotta have Wagyu beef or whatever. Or I can't just do it at my house. I have to go to the best restaurant in the city. You start to use these other things to fulfill yourself because you're unable to fulfill yourself on your own.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't even like going out for food. I like making it myself. I,
Yeah,
I'm gonna make it the way I know I like it.
yeah, yeah.
Not that I'm like super picky, but I don't know. I just like the
No,
way
I
it tastes.
completely agree with you because it's very hard to find a restaurant where the chef is a real connected, good chef, and he delivers or she delivers something to you that exceeds your expectation. Most of the time when I go out, most of my experiences are, oh, I could have made this at home for cheaper and better, and I could have
Yeah.
been on my couch watching whatever. But there have been sometimes, like if I got this pretty good sushi place down the road, and I've gone there and I try these different sushi rolls or whatever, and the guy makes it and he gives it to me. He's like, "Hey, what about that, huh? What about that?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, this is dope."
Well,
So there
sushi is
are
a form of art too,
it's
and that's
hundred
not a
percent.
form of art that I know how to make. So yeah, sushi, you gotta go out, right?
Oh, 100%. But I've also gone to like a noodle place, like to get udon noodles or something, and I get it, and I'm like, oh, is this frozen? Like, is this a dried udon noodle? He didn't make it. But then I've been to other ones and I'm like, oh my god, this is only $7. I know that there's a two Michelin star restaurant in Hong Kong that like the most expensive thing on their menu is like $7. It's the most inexpensive Michelin star restaurant in the world, and it's in Hong Kong.
Damn.
And
That seems that would be worth going to.
I've been wanting to go there like forever, and apparently they have like lines out their door, and they do a lot of takeaway to go stuff. And I was like, holy shit, I got it! What the hell? You know,
Yeah.
damn. But I know like down where you are, you have like really good restaurants. Where I am, we have an Applebee's and an Olive Garden and a couple of Texas Roadhouse if you're lucky.
Well, I'm in Miami, like a basic metropolis. Like I know you're kind of out in the country a little bit, so yeah, it's gonna be like that. The thing about big cities, like San Francisco's another good example of like really good food. New York, it, in a big city, if the place doesn't make enough money to pay those exorbitant rents, they're just not gonna make it. So eventually, the food in the whole city just keeps going up, basically.
No, that's true. I got a Mr. Jiki in the chat. He asked a good question. He says, "Is corruption subjective? Is one American's corruption might be an Indian's creativity?" What do you think about that?
This is true. I mean, it takes some creativity to scam people, right?
The thing I would say, my response to that is no. It's all of creativity runs upon an absolute morality, absolute truth, and it's because it interacts with the consequences of the natural world. And since our natural world here in America is the same as the natural world in India, then creativity is going to be the same in both places. Now, what John just suggested was that the social acceptance might be different, and from India to America, it's big time different, isn't it? They take a shit in the street. They have packs of orphans running around. A lot of Indians are hit by trains. They all ride on the top of the trains. They do all kinds of stuff. They try to take and scam free electricity, and they electrocute themselves half the time, and all kinds of stuff like that. The consequences are real. If you get hit by a train in America, you get hit by a train in India, you're gonna die. Okay? You get electrocuted in India, you get electrocuted in America, you're gonna die. And creativity is no different than that. Creativity is a force that Indians can use and Americans can use. Everybody in the world can use it because it's accessible to the global human population. But you have to be authentic. You have to interact with those consequences of the natural world in an authentic way and make a connection with the source in a altruistic or let me say it this way: you can't cheat the source. You get what I'm saying? You cannot run a scam on the source because you're just cheating yourself. You're scamming yourself. You're lying to yourself. Things are acceptable in other parts of the world that, as a higher standard, we would assume in the West would not be acceptable. Well, what if I were to tell you there's even a higher standard than that? And we are we're all attempting to achieve that higher standard. So my answer would be no. Creativity is the access to creativity, and corruption is the same way too. Corruption just means that, in my opinion, corruption means that you do something to betray yourself. Corruption is when I betray myself. So I betray myself for a reason, for money, for access to, a nice car or something like that. And so if you betray yourself, you could do that easily in America and easily in India as well. And so I think that if you have any more questions about clarification, let me know. John, is there something you wanted to pin on the back of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, what you said about, the standards are different in the West than in the third world, India in this example, but, all over, the Nigerian princes, all those scams, right? The standards are definitely different, but there's definitely, I believe, in an objective truth and an objective morality, right? So just because it's accepted there doesn't mean it's good or right. And I think that's one of the issues we've been having in this country. Just we've kind of allowed people to convince themselves and convince others that, oh, well, morality is subjective. You know, just because you think it's wrong doesn't mean it's wrong. Well, it's not that I think it's wrong, it's just that it is wrong.
Yeah. I think that every time, and you can mark my words on this, every time you find corruption within somebody, there is a justification. And the justification is at some point they were victimized. And they always use that as a crowbar in order to allow themselves to be corrupt. Like we were just talking about those people with the EBT cards, right? That they got shut off. Well, y'all gonna make me starve. Y'all taking this from me like how y'all used to take it from me when I was a slave or this or that or whatever. There's always a justification.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everyone's always a victim in their own minds, for sure.
Right. And
Definitely.
and and
And
in, and if you're going to be creative, you cannot be a victim. You have to
no,
you have to take complete responsibility because you are now going to be a creator. And by doing
yep.
that, you have the most power. You know, when you victimize yourself, you try to abscond from the responsibility, but you yield all of your power.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. You have no. If you view yourself as a victim, you have zero power. Even in your own life, you think everything else is, the man has got me down, and whatever other nonsense you tell yourself, or not you, but you.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, if you view yourself as a victim, you'll never have any kind of power until you get out of that
Yeah, like
mindset.
if you are a true victim, meaning something really did bad happen to you, you can only appeal to authority. That's all you can do. Beyond that, you have to take responsibility to make sure that your life changes so it doesn't happen to you again. And I'm not making a commentary whether it's good or bad or if it hurt you or didn't hurt you, because of course it did, and of course it was terrible, of course it was. But you cannot go forward and use that victimization or that perceived victimization in order to manipulate, because then you do become a corrupt person.
Oh, definitely. I mean, look, I've been through a lot of shit. I know just through talking to you in DMs and stuff, what you went through during COVID, that you've been through a lot of shit. At no point do I mean, maybe for like a day or two, you probably said, fuck, they fucked me, right?
Yeah.
But then it's how you deal with it. Did you get back up the next day and say, well, I'm not going to let these fucking government people stop me. I'm going to move out and go somewhere else where I don't have these restrictions like you did,
Yeah.
and get back on the horse and ride, right?
Yeah.
It Everyone deals with things differently, and that's what makes you like either a winner or a loser in life. Even if you don't ever succeed by like whatever measurable metrics like financial, or if you never stop trying, you're not a loser,
Yeah, I
even
agree.
if you lose a million times. It's
R-
it's about your mentality. The way I always look at it is, whatever it is I'm going through, there's people out there who have it infinitely worse. Doesn't matter what I'm going through. I'll
Well,
I'll figure it out.
you're 100% right. And I think when you become a true winner, you realize that the goals given to you by society are not real goals for you to achieve. The real goals for you to achieve are those within your own mind and your own heart. And you can achieve them. Everybody can achieve the goals that they have for their life, and everybody can find fulfillment and happiness. If I thought that, the biggest goal for me in life was to have a Ferrari because Magnum PI had a Ferrari, and I want to be just like Magnum PI, I'm not living my own life. I'm living an illusion that I saw on TV and trying to apply that to reality. And that's not the
Yeah,
way to do it. That's not the way to
that's
be
that's
happy.
seeking fulfillment through other external sources of what society, or not even just society, but the people in media who push out these images tell you need to be fulfilled. But if you don't uh, need that stuff to be fulfilled, if you can find fulfillment in simple things, then what good is a Ferrari? I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. Who wouldn't like a Ferrari? But does anyone really need a Ferrari? And
Well,
that's not like an argument for like communism and like no one needs a Ferrari. No one should be able to buy. I'm not saying any of that. If you want a Ferrari and you can afford it, go buy it. That's cool as shit. But to be fulfilled, you don't. No one really needs that.
Well, I agree, and I think that I think Ferraris need to exist. I just think that if you're making the whole purpose of your life to achieve a Ferrari, that when you finally achieve that Ferrari, because you will not be fulfilled because it wasn't really a goal of fulfillment in the first place. And what I'm saying is that enlightenment or maturity or a deeper understanding is understanding those things that will actually fulfill yourself. You could
Yeah.
still you could still become fulfilled and get a Ferrari. I'm not saying that, but you can also get a Ferrari and then not be fulfilled, and then need a Bugatti and not be fulfilled, and need a Lamborghini and not be fulfilled, and before you know it, perhaps you have 20 supercars and you don't like any of them.
And then you need like a private jet and a giant yacht. You know.
Right, right. Or you're like some of the really, really wealthy people that I've met in my life that spend the most of their day on heroin, you know, because they've done everything, right? And
Wow.
now they're on heroin. Yeah. And extremely wealthy, like of the most wealthy people in California, belong to the highest families. And I've mentioned it once or twice before, the family, uh, you know, but constantly on drugs because there's nothing else to live for. And they've blocked their path to self fulfillment, so they need other things to fulfill them momentarily, and they can never find rest.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's that's I think that's why a lot of people fall to drugs, to be quite honest, because they can't find the fulfillment in themselves, and if whether they can attain the things like you said, the extremely wealthy people that have everything they could ever want, or the people who just don't have the means to attain those things that they think will make them fulfilled. Drugs are a lot cheaper than a Ferrari. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that I often do these exercises in my head. It's like, okay, say for example, you have the mansion and you have the Bugatti. You got to say it like Andrew Tate, Bugatti. You've got the Lamborghini. You've got the hot tub. Now what? Now what are you waking up tomorrow to do to be excited?
Yeah, no, definitely. You need some you need something that drives you to continue forward, that fulfills you. And it isn't going to be something material from without, from outside of you. It's going to be something that you put out into the world from within.
Well, exactly. And how do you do that? How do you create something from within? You have to connect to the source. And like I've always had this idea, and I've always said this, is that art is an echo of the conversation you have with the source. Whether it's you're sitting there and you're painting a landscape and you're in that flow state, that landscape painting that you make is a representation of those 3 or 4 hours you were in that flow state, downloading that wisdom and that information from what you were seeing in front of you. And
Yeah.
if that's all that's required to be fulfilled. But if you're always blocked from that, you'll never find fulfillment.
Well, no, it's also the accomplishment, right? Like, if you think about it, your next series is gonna be painting outside, right? Your next
Yeah,
video series or challenge. You've been painting God knows how long. When you first start,
forever. Yeah.
you go out and you try to attain fulfillment, and so you go out, you paint a landscape, but it's crap because you've never done it before. You're just learning, and as you progress, as you continue to hone your skills, you're achieving things, right? You're bettering yourself. That kind of fulfillment, personal growth is another type of fulfillment that is extremely important. And I think a lot of people just don't have that. Like most people's fulfillment nowadays is, oh, I just won a game of Fortnite or Halo or whatever it is. That's the highest level of achievement they'll ever feel, which is kind of sad.
But and it's a level of corruption because all they're doing is they are trading part of their life away for an experience that somebody else created for them, and in some sort of fashion being parasited off of their energy. Now, Mr. Jiki, he made up a good statement in the chat. He said Lewis Howes has a good take on the emptiness through achieving. He'd go after awards or accolades because he wanted to prove something and was angry about it. But when he got the trophy, he was left empty. And this kind of goes to what you were just talking about, how like when I went out and I first, tried to do this painting when I was little, and I spent all these years climbing up the ladder. I thought painting was about making a picture, but it's not. When I got to the top of the ladder, I made a discovery, and the discovery was that painting is about communication, or about connection to the source, and that's what it's really about, and that's ultimate fulfillment.
Yeah, and in the case of painting a landscape that you saw, it's also about transcending a moment, right? I used to I've always loved photography. Like from when I was a kid, the first gift I ever asked for, like that it was like, this is something I want, was a camera. And I always joke that like me and my friends, we always joke about it, that when you take someone's picture, you're like stealing their soul for a moment, right? Not
Yeah.
really. Like I'm not a soul thief, but like you're freezing a moment in time. And when you paint something like what you're saying, like a landscape, you're expressing that moment out so that other people can also experience it.
No, completely. I completely agree with you. But and it's good that we do that. But as a person, you cannot find long-term fulfillment in trying to feed other people,
Oh yeah.
because you're neglecting yourself first. You can only find long-term fulfillment when you are at the peak of that spear, as far as when you're out there adventuring yourself. When you're running through the field, and you're trying to get out there and you're trying to see what the world's all about. And part of that is connecting to the source and getting into that flow state, learning that the flow state, what that is, and then spending time in that flow state, and then the production of that. Yes, it's going to help other people, and that's a fantastic part of it. But the biggest piece that you and I would get is being in the flow state, and then we can't wait to go back and get into that flow state again.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. For sure. You're not doing it for other people when you paint that landscape to transmit that message to them.
Right.
That's just a side benefit that you and others around you that that get to see your art get to benefit from. But yeah, the actual doing of the thing is where you yourself benefit. And also, like practicing your skill and bettering yourself through practice and all that.
No, you're 100% right. But the thing I really want to key in here is it's a conversation. Just like how, when I'm talking to you, I'm getting fulfillment because we're vibing off of each other. And when you get in the flow state, you're vibing off of the consciousness of, I don't know, it's going to sound crazy, the consciousness of the universe, or the source, or God, or however you want to put it, but you're vibing off of that. And you're basically getting fulfillment or recharged right then and there, as long as you're in that flow state.
Oh, definitely. And just for the audience out there, so you guys know, like I came on to this. We didn't discuss jack shit before this. I came on like 5 minutes before he hit the live button, and there was one comment. It was the one about the books that we discussed that we wanted to talk about. Other than that, we've just been vibing and in the flow state. So just so the chat knows, like this is kind of what we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah. When you are in the flow state, or you're resonating with somebody else, the conversation kind of guides itself, and then you kind of land on these discoveries, and you're kind of like, holy shit, there it is. You know what I mean? I can't believe we just came to that conclusion.
Yeah, definite. He asked me before if there was anything specific I wanted to discuss, and I was like, we'll just go with the flow wherever it takes us. And that's what we've been doing, really. Oh, you got to cook. That's cool. What are you going to cook?
We got Presby Bro out there. What are you cooking, Presby Bro? But, it's important that these kind of things happen. And it's important that, I guess what I want to communicate with the corruption versus creativity concept is that when you betray yourself with corruption, you cut off your ability to be creative. And if you want to become more creative, then you have to become more authentically who you are. And you have to yield and make a pact, a truth pact with yourself, to be honest with yourself. And the more honest you can be with yourself, the more you can unite yourself and create a sense of unity within yourself, which then in turn facilitates a greater level of creation.
If you're not authentic within yourself to yourself, then you're not creating from within yourself from the source. You're creating what other people who you're trying to be inauthentic for would want you to create, right?
And I would call that projection. And so
Yeah.
instead of creating, you're now projecting. You're projecting what you think people want to see or want to hear or want to believe, and it becomes really stale. Because true life and reality, it is exciting. Like when you hear people who are really authentic and truthful, and they speak with power, and they say things, and you're like, wow, 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 wow. And then you get the opposite, which is people who are projecting and I'm trying to make my audience happy. I'm trying to say something I know that they'll like, and I'm searching. It's fucking boring as hell. It's boring.
Oh, definite. Yeah, it's not it's not fun to create something that it's not you, you know? Like, could I make a beat of, like we were talking about last week, how just generic house music, right? I don't dislike it. I don't hate it, but it's not me, right? Like the songs I've worked on go all over the place. Like I have one that's just like kind of like a reggae beat. I have another one that's like a hip hop beat, another dubstep beat. It's just what flowed out of me those days, what I was inspired to create. And if I were to just be like, oh yeah, I need to make a house track, okay, I could do it. It wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't, I'd just be replicating what I've heard and trying to make something that's like a facsimile of something else.
Yeah, or if you were just trying to make some money, right? And you were like, "Oh, I know all these clubs. They want these house beats. I'm going to make like 10 or 100 house beats," and you put it out there. It might not, you might have been able to make the music, but it might not been to the level that you create your other music at.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And that's not to shit on house music. I do enjoy it sometimes, but it's just not creatively. It's not where I want to go.
Well, of course,
You know.
and as people, we're all individually different, and I don't have to like what you like. That goes without saying. But I will yield, and I will be on. Like for example, if I see somebody playing Spanish guitar, I'm like, wow, that guy's incredible. Or I see somebody playing a trumpet or a jazz or whatever. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. It might not be my style, but I sure
Yeah.
recognize the excellence in what they're doing.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's so many, especially now, like with YouTube. Like there's, back in the day, right in the '70s, it's like Van Halen. He's the greatest guitar player of all time, right? And he was great. Don't get me wrong. But now it's like you go on YouTube. It's like there's 1,000 Van Halens. It. There's so many super talented people. Whether you enjoy their music or not, you can definitely appreciate their talent.
Oh, 100%. And that brings up another good question of if there are so many talented people and so many creative people, how do they keep all of those people out of the industry? I've seen buskers, guys on the corner playing the guitar or the drums or whatever, Jimi Hendrix level, right? If they're
Yeah,
Jimi Hendrix level, how come they don't have a record deal? And so that would bring
that's
up a whole entire other conversation about how they control and influence society.
back in the day. A big part of it was discoverability, right? Like the guy on the corner, how is he going to get discovered? If you live in a small town where music producers don't go to the local venues, you're not going to get seen. You kind of have to make it out of that. I'm talking back in the day. Now you can go on YouTube and you can even just make songs and put them on Spotify. Even like it's a lot more open now, and that's a lot of people. Michael Jackson, he's probably the most popular music person of all time. Him or the Beatles. They both have had women faint at their shows and all the crazy stuff, right? And they did it in a time. People always say they did it in a time where there was no internet, and as if that to me, the fact that that's the reason they were able to do it, right? Because now creation is democratized. I have equipment here that didn't cost a crazy amount of money, and I can make the same kind of music that they did, right? Like quality level. Anyone can do it now. So now you don't find people who have. I mean, there's still some like that are propped to be there. They'll never get to that level though, because now, you can make music, I can make music, Bruv can make music,
Yeah.
anyone can make music. So like now you make it by finding your what they call your 1,000 true fans. I'm sure you've heard of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there was definitely back like when the Beatles were around and stuff like that. There wasn't as many people who even considered a rock and roll star as a way to even have a career. And I think, of course, they were some of the first to change that notion and to make it a real possibility. And so, everybody growing up then said they all picked up their guitar, right? They all said, well,
Yeah.
hell, in 10 years, I could be, the next Beatles or whatever. And so then we have a huge influx. And as the industry grows more and more and it has more and more influence, it's going to create more and more musicians, right? So then the question becomes like, how do they keep like printing more musicians, like they're printing more money? Well, how do we keep the money valuable? How do we keep these musicians valuable? And you said you got to find your 1,000 true fans, and I think now it's a lot of independent people doing that, but we still have the big music industries in control. Like they shifted from the DVD model. They since gone to the streaming, the Spotify model, and made it very, very hard for smaller people to even be able to monetize their songs without having that audience that they develop themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I think that they're not really producing artists to that level nowadays. I have a niece and a nephew. They're in their early 20s, and both of them. I mean, there are some newer bands that they enjoy, right? But my nephew is like System of a Down, Tool, stuff from when we were young. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the music. My niece too. Like she's into Megadeth, and it's like a lot of the new stuff just I don't think it resonates. It's all not all of it, because they like some newer artists, and I've heard some new artists that were pretty good, but I think that a lot of the new artists just aren't making it in that
Yeah.
way. Like
Well,
even
also,
I went to a festival. I've been to a couple of festivals actually, and all the headliners are like older bands.
yeah. Well, you have to ask the question, how many kids are learning the guitar now? Most of them are scrolling TikTok or on video games or want to be influencers without putting in the time it takes to learn instruments.
Yeah.
Or they auto tune, or they use the same Pro Tools that everybody else uses to produce their music, and they put a couple of loops together and they become big. There's very few who are actually like becoming virtuosos on an instrument.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's funny. I used to always make fun of my friends because I'm sure you remember like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, the video games, and it's like
Yeah, yeah.
you guys put so much effort into being able to play these songs on this fake stupid game when you could just devote that time to actually learning the actual songs
Yeah.
on a real instrument. It's like these people are stupid.
Well, isn't that like in a nutshell? You've just really summed it up. The difference between corruption and creativity, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, for
They
sure.
put all that time, and it was captured in that video game. When the video game ended, all of that time that was invested was wasted. If they had done that with a guitar or a harp, hell, I don't know, right?
Drum kit.
Anything, right, right. Or like even the Carlos Santana, if they had done that, they would have had that skill to use in a variety of other ways for themselves out beyond that.
Yeah,
Because
and get a whole bunch of fulfillment.
yeah, and I remember some of those guitars that the fake ones were expensive as hell, and they
Yeah.
got the whole drum kit that was fake and everything, and they could have just as easily bought the real instruments and put in the time, learn to read sheet music, but no, they were getting that dopamine hit doing the whatever. I'm serious, for like 4 to 6 hours a day.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember I would go hang out with friends. They would throw a party or whatever, and they would throw on Rock Band, and everyone would be like on that thing, and it's like this is just mindless. I feel like I'm surrounded by zombies almost. I
Yeah,
would always make fun of them too. It's not like I'm just talking shit about them. if any of them are watching that we're playing that, they're gonna
Well,
crack
uh,
up right now that I'm talking about them now.
do you remember when they got like the microphone as well? Like it started expanding just from like the
Yeah.
Guitar Hero to the whole band, and you could be a vocalist and stuff instead they were like fake bands and they could compete against each other.
Well, at least with the microphone one, you're actually singing and you got to keep it on the note, right? Because I had one of my friends had that also, and it would show like a line, and you got to stay on key, or else the things veers off and you fuck up and you lose. So at least that one you're actually like kind of honing a skill a little bit, but the rest of them it's like, come on.
No, and you're right. I remember like going over to a whole bunch of parties where they would drink and play it and rotate out and all this. I could never get into it. I was just like I don't see what you guys see in this, and then just like that overnight it was gone. It was
Yep.
gone and people were depressed, bro. They were depressed,
Yeah.
and
It's hilarious though.
yeah,
I
and
still crack up about it.
no, it's true. And now it's kind of like they've taken the same kind of model and they've put it with social media, and with how people scroll TikTok or no shade at James. James is becoming a mini TikTok star over there in England. He's like starting to knock it out of the park. But they scroll that. That's it. They just sit on their phone and scroll, and it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do with your life? What do you? Where's the motivation going? What's going on here?
TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts, and all that shit. It they really ruin people's attention span.
That's
Like
the truth.
a big issue. Like I enjoy listening to a long podcast, like what we're doing, like Rogan back in the day
Yeah,
when he was still kind of good.
yeah.
um, I enjoy listening to longer form stuff, kind of learning about a person, learning about history, learning about diet, nutrition, whatever it is. But the short stuff is so addictive. I've fallen to it too. Like Instagram, God, my uh what's it called? Algorithm is all kinds of crazy and it's hilarious. But man, you could get lost in that stuff. It really does mess with your attention span.
Well, hey, it's true because you sit there and you look up and it's been 2 hours later, and you ask yourself, what am I looking for? Like you'll
Yeah.
sit down, you'll turn on the TV onto a movie or something, and then scroll the phone the whole time. And then after, when you look up, the movie's over. You're like, holy shit, it's been an hour and a half. What was I looking for? What am I doing? What am I trying to achieve? It's like a
Yeah. And
fidget spinner for your mind.
I really think it's societal engineering, to be honest, because if no one has an attention span, then you see. I'm sure a lot of the audience is probably leads right, right? I voted for Trump 3 times. The last 2 times, kind of just because the other two were so terrible. But Trump does this all the time. All the politicians do, but Trump is like the master of it. Like, look at this thing I'm doing. That's crazy. But over here, you're not looking. Like the magician's trick. Pay attention to this hand. Ignore this hand. They all do it. Trump is very masterful at it because he gets the whole media talking about that one thing. And yeah, it's engineered short attention span so that people don't really catch on to stuff like that, I feel.
Oh, I completely agree, and not only that, but even the purpose is to destroy the attention span, and then you ask yourself the question: will movies at some point be old technology where they don't even want to make them anymore because people can't sit still for longer than 30 minutes to watch something? They need that slapstick joke or that punchline. The nuance is gone. I'm sure you've known this, but have you ever? Some movies are very empathetic movies, and they've said that if certain people, like narcissists, watch them, they don't understand the movie at all. And I asked the question: is this some form of stripping humanity of its ability to consciously see emotional nuance?
Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, you know, during COVID, like one of the big, um, what I call one of the big tragedies of COVID was the whole like everyone has to wear a mask at all times, and not. I mean, whatever. I'm in Florida. It was like that for a little while, and then it was done. But not for me. Like, okay, whatever. It's discomforting. I have to go wear a stupid thing on my face, whatever. But more in the kids who, when you're at that young age, you're learning to identify faces. You're learning to identify social cues, like from the time you're a baby until you're like 5, 10, probably. You're really starting to learn that kind of stuff, and there's going to be a whole generation of kids that are just all messed up that are going to be adults at some point,
Well,
and it's
that's
going to be scary.
Bro, it's true. And also, they've done studies to show that when screen time impacts kids, the younger they get the screen, like some kids get them when they're 2 or 3 just to sit there and babysit them. And that completely impacts their ability to be social, to read facial cues, and to pick up, behavior or emotional cues from the people around them and their parents. And it's almost a form of retardation.
Yes.
Well,
And it's
I
by
don't,
design. In my
yeah, I
mind,
don't
it's all by design.
Yeah, I don't mean like retarded. I mean retardation as
Yeah,
in
no, I know what
it
you mean. Like
stops the
slowing down.
growth. Yeah, it
I just
stops the
can't.
growth. Yeah.
I just
I
can't
was
hear the
like,
word retard or retardation without laughing. So
I was like, oh
that's
shit!
not on you. That's on me.
I was like, I said the wrong thing. Oh shit! But yeah, it's
No.
like it slows down the growth, and you got to ask the question. So will that change the form of entertainment for the next generation of what they'll even be able to appreciate?
Oh no, definitely. It's already happened. I mean, when I don't know how old you are. I'm 46, and when I was in high school, one of the my favorite movie of all time came out, Braveheart. That movie's like 3 fucking hours. No one's gonna sit through a 3 hour movie now. They don't. They hardly make them anymore. Like now, most movies are an hour 20 to an hour 40 at most. And once in a while, you'll get like an epic, like what was that movie with the blue aliens again?
Avatar.
Avatar. You'll get an Avatar once in a while that's like an epic, where they go to 2 hours. But that's like almost the cap now. Back in the day, you'd have like 3 hour movies sometimes. I mean, Gone with the Wind, wasn't that like a 4 hour movie or something crazy like that back in the day?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and now it's like an hour 20 is like a normal action movie.
Yeah.
We're so screwed.
Well, so you got to ask. It comes back when we ask the question, right? If you're unable to even appreciate it, how are you going to be able to create it later,
Oh
right?
yeah, no, definitely.
If
It's a
I can't,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah, if I can't observe the beauty, how am I going to be able to create beauty later when it comes my time to step into the role of creator? Like, you grow up, you watching movies. Well, at some point, you become a movie director. How can I create that if I never can observe it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that kind of, you know, is why I really appreciate the group you're putting together, because we're people that are, I think we're all kind of at least older than 30, right? Mostly. And, you know, we're a group of like-minded people who are all at least somewhat creative, and, you know, we need to like push art out to get something real out there, because everything is garbage.
Well, that's the truth. And Asian Outlaw, he says his favorite movie is The Seven Samurai, and it's like 4 hours long and subtitled. And he's absolutely right. I have a copy of that DVD, Seven Samurai. Fantastic movie. So good, in fact, that they went and they modeled so many other pieces of media on Seven Samurai after it had been made. And it was like basically a retread of a retread of a retread. And that's kind of what you just said is, there's so much garbage out there. We have this desire to create something real. And that again brings us back to the origin point of the question: what is real? How do we create something that's real? What is even real?
Yeah, no, I mean it's true. It's a tough question because everyone has different tastes, but I, you know, it's hard. We've all been influenced, whether we like to admit it or not. It's just a matter of what era did you come up in? What was the influence that was being pushed onto you? We've all been somewhat influenced in that sense. So what is real? Real is when you just drop everything else and just do what comes to you. when you're in that state of in the flow state of being connected to source.
Bro, and I think that's it right there. That's the key. And you just said it, connected to source, connected to the thing that sets the consequences of our natural world. Because I've watched many movies. I could tell the ones that are great from the ones that are not great. Seven Samurai was a great movie. The Departed was a great movie.
Oh yeah, that was great.
American Gangster was a great movie. I could tell they were all real, right? But then
Yeah.
you got other stuff that's not real. And even though I don't live in the genre. I never lived in New York. Obviously, I didn't live in Japan at when there were samurai. Obviously, I didn't live in wherever American Gangster took place. Brooklyn, I think.
Chicago. I think that was Chicago. But
Was it
yeah,
Chicago? No, you're right. It was Chicago.
Chicago.
But I could recognize the realness in it. It's kind of like what we alluded to earlier when I said, well, maybe this type of music isn't my taste, but I can tell that person is connected when they're playing that jazz or those blues or whatever they're playing.
Yeah, definitely. But then also, right? Like those movies are all great. I love them. Training Day. I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh yeah,
Great
another
fucking
one.
movie.
Right.
Scarface. Like there's a whole lot of good movies. But then some of they allow some real movies to come out, and I think it's because they push a message, right? Like look at all the movies that we all said these are real good movies, like real stuff. They're all violent gangster movies in one way or another, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
all of them, but you know, unless you're Mel Gibson and you can just afford to release anything you fucking want because you're that rich, you have to get it approved through the studios, and they're only going to let you come out with what they think is the message that they want pushed out, right? That's
Well,
why you
even
see everything is, uh, let's make a remake of Batman, but make it, you know, black and gay or whatever they said in South Park, right?
yeah. No, you're 100% right. And even Mel Gibson, he came up with Lethal Weapon. He did Payback. He did these other
Yeah.
movies as well in order to get to the position that he's at now, where he can make anything he wants to. But you're right. I was trying to think when you said that of other movies that I had seen that were great movies. That weren't like that, and most of them
Yeah,
I
there's
could.
definitely some, for sure.
No, but
Definitely.
you're right. The majority carry that connotation or that message in order to shape society. Studio Ghibli for the most part. Like a Spirited Away or Porco Rosso or something like that. Those are great, but they're going to reach a much less audience than say something like American Gangster or The
Yeah.
Departed or something like that.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And yeah, I mean there's definitely, you know, I think Hollywood plays a dance, right? Where they decide, is this going to be profitable enough that we don't care so much about if it's pushing the message, you know? And if it is, then they do it because then they can fund all the crap that pushes the message that they want to push. So, like things like Braveheart, that wasn't Mel Gibson self-funded. That was like the one that got him all the money that he could self-fund. Uh, Great movie, pushes a message of like freedom and like, you know, standing up to authority. There's no
Yeah.
way Hollywood would want to push that out now if
Right.
they if
Right.
they were to put out a movie. Uh, but once in a while, they're like, this is going to make so much money, we just have to do it.
Yeah. Now you bring up a really good point, and it makes me think of John Carter of Mars. And John
It's
Carter of
John Carter
Mars,
Mars.
it's a movie.
Oh, okay.
And it came out a while ago. It was right when Disney was trying to acquire Marvel. And John Carter of Mars is based upon a series of books that came out, like I think at the turn of the century, and they're all about this guy who can go to Mars and stuff like that. Great books. John Carter of Mars is one of my favorite movies. I love that movie, and they sank $250 million into that movie. Well, right after they had made that movie, they acquired Marvel, and you know what they did? They scrapped John Carter of Mars because they
They
didn't
just
want.
dropped it.
They just dropped it. They didn't want it to compete with the Marvel movies that they were going to produce for the next decade.
Holy shit.
Right.
That's insane.
So a lot of the ideas that we think of making money or not making money, it is like that, but at a much larger scale than we even realize. Because
Yeah.
they had adapted John Carter of Mars, because it was going to be a series for the young adult male. He goes to Mars. He rescues the Martian princess, and he falls in love with her. And then he has to go, and there's like a series of books that he has to go back and keep saving whatever Mars or the universe or whatever. But they didn't want that to compete with the whole Marvel thing that they had just acquired. And the next movie they put out was Iron Man.
Yeah, that's
But
crazy.
but they wrote $250 million off as bad debt. It was a loss. They just wrote that off. Boop, bye. And
Wow, you
and
would think they would just release it one day just for the fuck of it,
no,
but
it they released it. They released it,
oh,
but
okay.
they didn't put any money behind it for advertising, and they wrote it off. They ended up losing like something like $250 million on it.
Oh, gotcha. I thought you meant they shelved it because they've done that too,
Right.
where they just say, you know what, this is not like I think there was a was it Snow White or Cinderella recently that they were gonna redo, and they made the movie, and then they just said, nope, you know what, too much backlash, we're gonna just shelve it, and fuck it, we lost that money.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was that one with Rachel Zoe or something like that, and I think you're right. But it goes to show that it is what you say it is. If they can see long term that they're able to push this narrative and make a lot more money, then they will lose money in order to do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a definite thing that they do, and you know, no studio would have gotten behind a lot of Mel Gibson's solo movies just because of the messages that he pushes because he's religious. Say what you will about his faux pas because we've all had them, but he is a church going guy. He tries to push a religious, positive message out there in his stuff, and now he can self fund, so he's all good. But Hollywood wants nothing to do with him.
Right, and which is interesting because Passion of the Christ was, I think, the biggest independent movie ever made, or something like that. And
Yeah,
he's been filming the sequel to it. I forget what it's called. Do you know what it's called? The sequel, by any chance? And
I don't.
he's getting ready to drop that like in the next year or so, like that, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be a box office blowout.
Especially with like a lot of the youth like Gen Z is trending more like conservative. They feel that emptiness in their lives. They're kind of going more towards religion. I'm sure you've seen it online too. It's gonna be huge if Mel Gibson pulls this off. It's gonna be huge.
Yeah, Professor Grass says the movie Idiocracy was made by Fox, but the same thing happened and they never advertised it. So, and then James said that they shelved Batgirl. They made Batgirl and it was so bad that they shelved that too. Asian Outlaw says it's the resurrection of the Christ is the movie that Mel Gibson's currently making, and you're right. It is going to be huge, and it makes me wonder why the sudden turn back towards Christianity. What do you think about that?
I think just a lot of young men, especially, right? Because I'm sure it's mostly young men that are more. I see women posting too, but women just do whatever's like kind of popular at the time mostly.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But I think a lot of young men feel empty. They feel like they don't have a purpose. Like I'm 46. I'm never probably gonna own a house unless I get really lucky. And so imagine being 20 right now.
Yeah,
So you have to kind of give yourself hope for what um, something not material, right? You have to kind of fill yourself with something that gives you hope. And also, I think a lot of the young people see what society has become with the lack of religion and have to see, you know what? Maybe they were right back in the day about stuff. I mean,
I
I've
agree.
always been kind of. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go for it.
I was gonna say when I was very young, I was an atheist. Then I kind of became spiritual. I was like kind of into Buddhism. Like over time, it's like no, Chris. I think Christianity is right. I'm not like going to church. I'm reading stuff. I'm kind of like learning about it. But there's so much evil in the world, and they seem to be pushing against Christianity so hard that it's like it has to be there has to be something to it, right?
Right. No, I agree with you. I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about fulfillment and about how to, you can get all the money in the world and still not be fulfilled. And I think everybody, every human being, really finds fulfillment within their family, and long-term happiness within their children and then their grandchildren. And I think if you, cut that out of men's lives and women's lives, then we get these lies like feminism and these lies like hopelessness and materialism that ultimately, once achieved, we realize are ultimately unfulfilling. And so I'm all in very supportive of anything that brings back the family. And when I speak about the family, I mean the three-generation family. The
Yeah.
grandparents involved with the parents, involved with the children. The three-generation family is the way, that is the family unit. I think the grandparents being involved in the lives of the parents and the children is so paramount in order to allow the parents to still have a healthy romantic relationship, and allow the burden of raising the children to be shared a little bit with the grandparents, so the grandparents can say, oh, no, 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 don't do that. This is what I learned. Oh, you should do this because it really helped you, and so on and so forth. And it helps so much to have that guide to help raise a really mature and self-reliant and fulfilled children.
Well, also to quote you earlier, it kind of retards the degradation of society, right? Because
Yes.
if you have that older voice who has an older moral framework, it slows down the process of the degradation of morality. I was mostly I grew up, my both my parents worked, my grandmother took care of me a lot, so I was kind of raised with an older moral framework, and a lot of time, I felt like I don't really feel like I was made for this time because I didn't have a lot of these loose. Don't get me wrong, I like to have fun and go do fun stuff, and I'll go get wasted once in a blue moon, whatever. I'll go go have fun. I'm a libertarian. Do whatever makes you happy, just don't hurt people.
Yeah, you're an
But
old soul, is what we would call you.
yeah, but I was raised with an older moral framework, so I don't have a
Right.
lot of the like loose. When I say loose morality, I mean like people stealing, saying stealing's okay if you're poor, right? All this crazy stuff that people espouse now. I didn't have that, but we've lost that. Like the boomer generation is like, nah, that's your kids. You deal with them. I'm not. I'm going on a cruise. Have fun.
Yeah, yeah, and that to dude, that's wild to me. That's crazy, extremely selfish. Um, but I couldn't help but agree. You're raised by your grandparent or your grandmother, and she establishes within you a greater maturity. Is what happened, bro. You were just more mature than the people at your own age, and that's what I would term as an old soul. Somebody who, I don't want to run around in my 20s snorting cocaine off of strippers' tits, because I know that by the time I hit 30, I'm gonna be, getting bailed out of prison or something like that, right? But
Yeah,
you know, you,
definitely.
you you save the snorting of the cocaine off the tits for when you're in your 40s, because then you're, I was
Then you've
no,
earned it, right?
right, yeah. Well, then proper balance. You can be like, oh, okay, I need to stop. Okay, 1 8 ball is enough for me, right? But no, but that's what we're talking about here, and it's that establishment of a safety net that is within those grandparents. That's how it's supposed to be, and also a protection for anything, any kind of predator. How many times have we heard the story about the babysitters that even just throw the toddlers into their cribs and stuff like that the parents caught on, like, the secret nursery cam or whatever in the bear, crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to my boy Third Railify in the chat. I've been on his show a bunch of times, and super cool guy. He's Canadian, unfortunately, so don't mind him. He's talking about bagged milk, which is apparently something they do in Canada because they're weird and
Yeah,
kind
I
of
have I
make
have
them pay.
experienced the bagged milk. Yeah, I have.
You have.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I've been up to Canada and I've seen their bagged milk, and I've been like, what the hell is this? You know.
They
But
want it
yeah,
in a form that they're used to from birth, right?
yeah, yeah. No, but not only that, but we got the bagged milk, we got the jug milk, and then we also have the boxed milk, which is really kind of crazy too.
I've heard of
kind of
boxed
nuts.
wine. I've never heard of boxed milk. That's odd.
No, we got box milk too. Ray Haylock says, "Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey to you, bro."
Hey, Ray.
But yeah, uh, you got to have that. You look at society, and it's like, if you're going to create a strong, vitalized society, you want all three of those generations influencing each other. The older people, the grandparents, find fulfillment and a rejuvenation through the grandkids, which gives rest and relaxation to the parents, and they don't have to worry about people coming in and trying to be a predator on their children. It's supposed to work that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I grew up in Miami. My dad's Cuban. It was my Cuban grandmother that was the one that was in the house, helping take care of us while my parents worked. And in Miami, it's mostly very Latin. So a lot of my friends were kind of brought up in the same kind of way where, parents were out working, but the grandmother or grandfather, grandparents were involved. Um, it's a lot. I think we retarded our our de-evolution on that a little bit
I
due
no,
to the Latin culture.
I completely agree. The Latin culture is fantastic in that they have strong family values. When you
Yeah,
go home, you knew somebody loved you. If your
yeah,
parents were working, your grandparents loved you. And a lot of white people, they had their family broken up. Their grandparents over there, the single mom over here, and maybe they'd go home to school. He was a latchkey kid. He'd go home. He's alone by himself until like maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So he's just by himself, bro. None of that attention, none of that love, a feeling of detachedness, and that's very detrimental.
yeah, definitely. I completely agree. It's just not good. I Don't get me wrong. There were times where we were left alone, but we were raised right. But my grandmother was there during the day, and then sometimes at night we were just after dinner. It's like, okay, I gotta go, but your parents will be home soon, and we just knew not to open the door and shit.
No, for sure. And having that, even the fact that your grandmother was there, you didn't want to let her down. You had a relationship with her and you didn't want to let her down. And, say for example, you were with a group of kids and they were like, let's go do this, this, and this. And you were like, you thought about your grandmother, right? Like, oh shit, I
Yeah,
don't, if my grandmother saw me doing this, I wouldn't want to do this. And of course, this is probably when you're much younger. And so you wouldn't do it. And that would be enough to keep you safe.
oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. If you have people in your life that love you, you don't want to disappoint them,
Yeah,
right? So
right,
yeah, you kind of stay on more on the straight and narrow
right.
if you have people that love you.
And that's kind of the difference also between creativity and corruption. In creativity, you have love and you have loyalty. In corruption, you have transactional relationships and blackmail. Which one
Yeah,
is stronger? Which one's stronger? You will die for people you love. You ain't gonna do that for these people blackmailing you over here. Like, sorry, motherfucker, you out.
yeah, definite, definite. It's fear versus love, right? Which emotion is stronger?
Oh, 100%.
Um,
And I think it really does come down to that.
oh yeah, no, definitely, definitely. It's it's a problem now. It's a big problem. Everyone was sold this dream of like be your own person. Not that it's bad to be your own person, right? But like forget family, forget, just do what thou wilt, right? Like
Yeah,
the Aleister Crowley
yeah.
quote that was like the big thing in the 70s that everyone was promoting, and that kind of like put us down this terrible path.
Yeah, well, I would say it is bad to be your own person because nobody exists, completely separate from a social network, right? Whatever
Oh
you
yeah,
do
no,
whatever you do is going to impact me. Now that I know John, he's all the way over there in Miami. I know if all of a sudden something happens to you, I'm going to feel bad. I'm going to feel it. You know what I'm saying? Because we've talked. I've gotten to know you. We're friends. I like you. And I want to be like, oh shit, what happened to John, man? Tell me what happened. And they're gonna be like, "Oh, he was doing blow off this stripper's ass, man, and she fucking twerked, and that was it. He's gone. Clapped his head right off, baby. You know what I mean?
wouldn't be a terrible way to go though, right?
Right? We all have goals, don't we? We all have goals, right?
Yeah, that's not my goal, but if it happened that way. All right, whatever. I lived a
Yeah,
good life.
yeah, no big deal. Well, we're coming up on just about almost what time we start? Almost 2 hours,
Shit.
bro. We already been fucking going. So think about what Is
Oh,
there anything you want to close with? I feel like we could still go another hour, but I want to keep it at least under 2 hours. Come on, people, let's go.
let's give my Jerry Springer final thought, right?
Yeah, Jerry Springer. Final thoughts here. What do you got? What do you got on the panel and the expert? What do you got for us?
Love yourselves and love each other, because that's really what it's about, to make society better. Aside from, what we've always been talking about, creating, putting good out there, love each other. That doesn't mean love evil people, and but the people that are your people, take care of them.
Yeah. Now that what you said a lot right there, bro. I think you just triggered a couple things in my mind about
Go on then.
constant. No, I can't. I'll say maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do this again next week. But I'll talk about like what is love, and then you said something very profound, which is there are two types of people, and there definitely are two types of people in the world. There are people that understand and have empathy, and then there are people who do not, and that is a big topic of conversation. But I agree with you, and I know it sounds cliche, and that's what's wild. Is it does. Oh, love yourself and love people. But if you love yourself, you're going to be honest with yourself. You're going to be truthful with yourself. If you love other people, you're going to conduct yourself in a way that you're going to treat them how you want to be treated, and you're going to take care of them. You're going to look out for them. And just in those things right there, you've already made your network stronger. You've already made your society more important. And if you have children, they feel like they belong. Because kids want to feel like they belong, and they want to feel proud of what they belong to.
Yeah, and if you love other people, you're gonna hold them accountable. You're not
Oh,
gonna just like let them slide, right?
no, that's facts. That's facts. You're gonna toe that line of truthfulness, right? You're not gonna have that relative morality when you're saying, "Oh, this is good now. That's not good then. Whenever, however I feel, I'm going to change. What's good or what's bad. It's always going to be good. Always going to be bad. So,
Yep,
well, John, I
definitely.
sure appreciate you talking, and we'll chat a little bit more and see if we got another one for next time. We got
Yeah,
son of a beachant just comes in. Hey, what's up, bro? Good to see you. You caught us right at the tail end, bro. But listen to the replay if you want. So glad you're here. And I'll talk to John. Maybe we'll do another one next week. But thanks everybody for coming by, and do what John said. Okay, love yourself and love the other people in your network. All right, let's do that. Let's work on that this week. So let's fucking go. All
definitely.
right, we're out of here, people.
Bye.